Let's bring in our international affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert now. Doug, so here in France, we're on the verge of expanding this health pass. What about other EU member states?
Everyone's doing their own thing in their own corner. You know, look, on paper, right, Europe is supposed to have some sort of harmonized policy when it comes to these health policies, COVID and all of that. The fact of the matter is the policies vary widely on sort of the willingness to inspect and to check certificates, and even sort of the mentality from country to country. It's not even always having to do with the gravity of the situation. So look, France has sort of led the way on a national level. It was an early adopter of this idea of a digital health certificate, allowing you access to sporting events, to theaters, to cinemas, to bars and restaurants, even outside, sitting outside. The idea that you will have to show a health certificate that you've either been vaccinated, fully vaccinated, you've had a negative test within the last 48 hours, or you've recently recovered from COVID, either any of those things. But you look at other countries. Germany, it depends on the region, the Länder. Some of them only require you to wear a mask. Others, they have stricter rules imposed. There's nothing on sort of a national level. The only other country that's really similar to France, maybe a couple of them, Denmark was an early adopter of this idea of digital health certificates, similar to France, not exactly the same, a Corona Pass it's called. Austria as well was an early adopter of this idea to try to spur people to get vaccinated, to try to create a safer environment in indoor places, especially by making sure that those gathering in those places have some sort of immunity already and can prove it with a digital or paper certificate. A lot of countries, Spain, it's region by region. You have some regions, Galicia, the Canary Islands, where you have a lot of tourism. Yeah, they have certificates and they want you to show proof in certain places. But then again, tourism trumps all. The economy trumps all. And are they going to look the other way, perhaps, in certain places? How strict are they going to be with enforcement? Same goes with Portugal. Germany's interesting. I mentioned it before. In some cases, they're stricter with people, say, traveling from regions such as the Iberian Peninsula, coming back into Germany because they add extra restrictions because they fear they might actually be infected, coming back from a hard-hit, high-risk zone, so to speak. But on a bottom level, everywhere in Europe you look, especially Eastern, Central Europe, all different policies. Everyone's all over the place, all over the board.
Really not a lot of clarity within the bloc itself. What about broader travel within the European Union? How easy or not is that at the moment?
This is where it gets interesting, right? Because once again, very similar to what I just told you, there is no, in a nutshell, uniform European policy. What there is this, we have it, you presumably have it as well. It's a piece of paper that you could print out on the French, health website. It is an EU health certificate, which is just that. It has a QR code for one of those conditions that you fulfill, and that will allow you here in France, but the ability to travel to any member of the EU bloc. The reality, though, is that some nations, and I just mentioned Germany as being one case, will impose their own sort of restrictions. That is, they will adapt their policies to make them harder or less hard, depending on both their cultural sort of mindset, but also a lot of politics. So in certain places right now, Hungary has almost no restrictions, but it does make people show passes almost wherever they go. But a lot of places, if you're traveling to them, they don't even really bother to check any of your certificates. And once again, Central Europe, Eastern Europe tend to be much more lax on this front. You could say perhaps that's because some areas there have had lower incidences, lower levels of COVID, so perhaps they're not as attuned and as fussy, if you will, about those types of checks. Other countries are extremely fussy. If you're traveling from France to Spain, to Italy, to Germany, you might expect to have your papers checked. But once again, it depends on where you go. It depends on the bureaucrat you get. It depends on their mood on a given day, whether or not that pass, they're actually going to say, could I please see your digital health certificate?
And there's even been a lack of clarity about what it's called. Is it a vaccine passport, a health
No, they're two
certificate?
different things. Vaccine is exclusively vaccine, fully vaccinated. A health certificate means there are other conditions
and they've pushed
for
back
which you
at it,
qualify.
haven't they?
Exactly.
Doug Herbert, thanks so much for that.